CSB, we're a bunch of individuals who are passionate about life and how important our faith is, journeying through life and offering you a platform to do that, whether it be online, whether it be in person, a relaxed environment, conversational style, and just talking about life and its journey.
Thank you to Tim for coming to join us and give his testimony to the audience of CSB. We feel very privileged to have him with us. Going back to the 80s, I was reflecting on where you and I got to know each other and link up. I guess it would have been through our mutual connection with your wife, Margie.
Yeah.
I was part of a fellowship group where she was at St. James Church. Tell us a little bit about yourself in the 80s. What was happening in your life?
Yeah, so in the 80s were good years for me. I was a very solid bachelor. Enjoying life,
Yeah.
And canoeing had become a part of my passion, to the detriment sometimes of my studies and work, probably.
Yeah.
But so I was doing a lot of expeditions in South America. And
Back then already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Alaska, and so I'd been bitten by the bug. And was loving it, man.
Wonderful. And you're representing South Africa?
And that was at the end of varsity.
Yeah.
And so I'd been training hard for a good few years, and that had become my dream, actually. I had a dream. Not a dream, I mean, I thought I'd just love to win this Doozy marathon, which I just love it, man. It's just what I like. And maybe I can win it one day.
Wonderful.
And then the next thing was, as it went, I thought, yes, maybe I can make a springback team and go and paddle against international top guys.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic.
Tell us a little bit about just a brief background. Tim, I was reading a little bit in your book. Tim produced this lovely book, The Three Rivers. And I was just dipping into a bit of your background and seeing how you grew up on a farm in Natal. I was trying to see where this bug bit you as well, of canoeing. Just give us a little bit of a sketch of your childhood and your background in Natal.
Yeah, so I had a good childhood. There were 5 of us children, and we were farm kids. And those are the good old days. We had complete freedom to go wherever we wanted to range and over the farm. Yeah, and then my dad was a fantastic guy who I loved dearly. And he would take us down the Unkemas River, which was just on our doorstep, when it was flooding.
Yeah.
And on car tubes,
Oh.
which was just, actually now I think back, horrific, dangerous. And he'd take us down, and it was amazing. Miraculously, we all survived, but I got hooked. I just loved that whole vibe of a river life and the vegetation and trees in the side, but the excitement of rapids and adrenaline, and that was really where I realized I just want to do more of this, man.
So how did it gravitate from car tubes to kayaks?
Yes, my elder brother, David, started. One day brought back a long 17-foot racing canoe, and I was intrigued, I'd never seen this.
Yeah.
So I started, and I teamed up with also another Ikopo person, Rory Pennyfather, became good friends and paddled together. And then it just naturally morphed into racing. And yeah, that led into the Doozy and other things, but it was sort of my stage in life.
And then you're competing in the Doozy. How did that shape you as a canoeist and your pursuit of canoeing?
Doozy is a fantastic race, man. It's a 3-day race from Pietermaritzburg to Durban on the Doozy and Mgani rivers, and it's like a biathlon. So it involves racing down the rapids, through tricky rapids, almost continuously rapids, but then also jumping out and carrying your canoe on your shoulder over rough terrain, little cattle paths and ups and downs and steep hills. In Natal, the thing to do was to do the Doozy. If you're a young person, and thousands of young men and women did it.
Yeah.
It was like, this is what you did. So there was a great vibe, you know, and it was the biggest race in the country, and we just loved it, man. Yeah.
Tim, and then you, the only person to have kayaked the 3 major Amazon tributaries. What drove you to do something like that?
Yeah, it was interesting, and it just started. It just happened. And how it happened was, so I was realizing I was enjoying rapids and whitewater far more than flat water. And I'd made a friend at university at Maritzburg, Francois Oudendal, and he also started paddling. And he phoned up one day and he said, "Hey Tim, let's try and find one of the biggest rivers in the world to do." And then we talked about it, and I said, "Yeah, hey, well that sounds great." And we decided on the Amazon, and then we looked at the map and followed it up where the maps turned purple up in the mountains, and we looked like the main tributary was the Urubamba River. And so that was where we were going to go. It's about 4,000 or 5,000 meters above the snow line, and to the confluence of the Apurimac, the other tributary, it's about 1,400 kilometers. And so when he said this, I'm in, boy, let's do it.
Wonderful.
And that's how we got there.
And there was a standout experience that you had in your expeditions that taught you quite a bit about yourself as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
It's one thing about a river, and a powerful river in an isolated country, which is a foreign country. And often we'd get into these canyons which were like kilometers deep and sheer rock faces on each side that you couldn't climb out of the rocks, you couldn't go back upstream, and I could only go down. And so that taught us a lot, that you just had to say, well, we've got to do it, and let's go. And after that first expedition, I became a believer, and then I would pray, and I'd say, "God, this is hectic, man. Anything could happen." And you can't even scout the rapids often because you can't get out to look at them. You just got to go, and God, please help me, man, and protect me. And that was a great thing, and that gives you strength. And I'd say, and God would do that. And so it was a great strength in my faith and my love for God, because He was always there.
So He hadn't always been there, Tim. There was a pivotal service, I think, that happened in Cape Town.
Yeah, so that first trip on the Urubamba, I was by no means a believer.
Yeah.
And it was in the second 2 that I did as a believer.
Yeah.
And that service you mentioned was at St. James and there's a history to this. I was courting a lovely young architect from UCT, Margie. And then I realized, hey, but she's a Christian. And I was very upset about that. And I said, no, we can't go, and we better split. But she said, Hey, well, okay, that's fine. She'd actually said to me, this can't go on. I hadn't. And so she said, well, if you like, I'm going to a service tonight, and you can come if you like, or you can drop it all. You can head off. I said, oh, okay. Oh, that was a tough one. She was calling the shots.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll just be gentlemanly enough to say that I've been, and then I can say, well, I've tried this thing, and then it didn't work. And so that was the biggest mistake. And I went there with her, and there was this man, Frank Retief, preaching. And immediately I saw that he was looking at me, and I was right at the back row and starting to talk about me. And I became very upset and furious. I thought, Margie's tipped him off that I'm coming. And I was angry, and I stormed out the church. That's gross. But then I'm drawn back. Weekend after weekend, I was working in the Hex River Tunnel in Worcester. Come back in the weekends to jaw with my mates. And on Sunday night, I was about to head home, and I thought, I'll just pull in again and see. And it went on for a year. Visiting the church, listening to this man preach. It was a spiritual battle, man. It was up and down, and I was mixed up and thought, no, man, I didn't like what I was hearing, but was drawn to it.
Yeah. What didn't you like about it?
I didn't like this thing about sin, man, that we're all sinners. And I said, well, I'm not a sinner. I've never done anything really wrong. And I would scoff at it. I started realizing, after hearing what this amazing book, the Bible, said about it, and Frank's preaching, I realized that that was me. And at that stage, I was depressed because I was feeling unfulfilled, and everything the boxes I ticked wouldn't make a difference. And I was in a downward spiral, and I didn't like who I was. And so I realized that my own heart was dark, and I was heading in the wrong direction. Didn't know what to do about it. So I was always searching. Since school days, I'd always had an empty feeling in my heart. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew there was something I needed. And so I would always try and fill that with it. And that's where racing and running fierce rapids would really, that seemed to, I thought, well, this is what you need, man. This is what I need, man. This is good stuff. But it was like a quick fix, because it would always wear off. You'd win a race or have done a successful expedition, and then you just feel down about it. And then I was in my 30s, man. And I thought, I can say I've tried as hard as I can possibly try to do well at this stuff. But now I'm feeling more and more, could even say depressed, down, unfulfilled. So it was very worrying for me. I knew something wasn't right. Yeah.
So you mentioned this man, Frank Retief, that came into your life and played quite a pivotal role in telling you something about yourself that you didn't want to hear.
Well, he spoke right through all my nonsense, and answered my questions.
Yeah.
Then it was an Easter Sunday service. Suddenly, something was happening in my heart, man. And I'd never felt this before. I just saw glimpses of my life as it was, not liking who I was now, not just like, I just mixed up, man. What's going on? And I thought this was the answer, knowing that I had to change it, but I didn't know how. And then it wasn't an audible voice, but sorry.
No, it's yeah.
But I felt God. I could hear God saying, "Tim, you need to change, man. You're on the wrong road." And I knew that it wasn't me, it was God. And so that was a real turning point. And I realized I better change. I'd had a lot of near-death experiences up to then. And I'd started to realize there was an eternity where it was you go to heaven or you go the other way. Yeah. And I realized the way I was going, I was just being reckless and daredevil and stupid and taking too big a risks. That if I drown now, it's terrifying to think where I'll go. And so after the service, I slipped out, hoping nobody would see me. I went to Frank, opened the door, and I just said, Frank, I want to give my life to Jesus Christ now. And he was great, man. He looked at me. He said, well, are you sure? This is the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life. But that's good. I'll say a prayer with you of commitment to the Lord, and you can follow after me and say it. And I did that with all my heart.
What were some of the big changes that happened, Tim?
Yeah, so it was a change. And that first year was probably the worst year of my life because I was so mixed up. I had to reset my priorities and my relationships, and that was a struggle, man. And that battle hadn't stopped. I remember when I was making that decision to follow God, I just remember hearing almost a screaming voice at me saying, what the hell are you doing, man? Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? And I always remember there was a stronger voice, calm and still, that voice of God just saying, no, follow me, man. This is the way to go. And I followed that.
I assume that having become a Christian, it made it easier to get married to Margie, and has that impacted your married life as well?
Yeah, hugely. So I married Margie after that courtship. She was a very strong believer, and I admired her for that. I liked her strength. She was as poor as a church mouse trying to get herself through university. Went to visit her flat, and she was sitting on tea boxes, and I actually like this, her prayers for me. She prayed for me while I was going through that whole time, and it's what pulled me through. I was tough on her because 6 months after we got married, I went down this next expedition to the source of the Amazon. And she allowed me to go and do that, which was very a sacrificial thing. We were starting to have kids there. And she was very generous and allowed me to do that, which I really loved her for. Then we ended up we had 4 kids. The most wonderful thing is all our kids are strong believers now.
Wonderful.
Better than I am.
Fantastic.
And all gunning for it.
Well, so they keep you on the straight and narrow.
Very much, with difficulty.
Tim, how would you say, having become a Christian, how has that influenced your business life, your professional life?
I've never considered myself as being a good businessman, but I started this business, crazy business, contracting and cutting down trees and working with a big gang of Zulus. I actually loved the Zulu people I was with. I had a Nduna, and he actually trained me. He'd been trained in forestry, and we went together, and he took pity on me and said, "Hey, Nkosana, ungakhuluma kanje, man. Don't talk like this to the guys. You must be quieten down, man. Just don't say anything. Just soft. You're too aggressive." And there were a lot of times I had to call out to God again. We had forest fires raging through our plantations, and then that's everything you've worked for. I was planting timber as well. And then the wind would change. So I was calling on God a lot.
What would you say to a young sports enthusiast who's pursuing a particular area of discipline and might be experiencing a degree of fulfillment, but there's an emptiness?
Well, so I was one of those people in my early days. And so I would say, if something's tugging at your heartstrings and you think, this is what I want to do, I think God puts those things in us too. And I'd say, go for it, man. One thing I learned in these long river expeditions, which would take 3 months sometimes, to think of the whole thing, you've got 1,000 kilometers of rapids and canyons and potential epics. You just think of what's happening now. This rapid, I've got to do this rapid. And then around the corner, there's another one. And you go rapid by rapid and day by day. And you say to the guys, well, you just start. And you say to the guys, just do it, man. If it's on your heart, it's good. I'd imagine God loves it when a young person, enthusiastic, ambitious, wants to take on a big adventure or challenge. I think God likes that. But then, as was in my experience, I would say God created us. And before he created us, he had a plan for our lives. God says if we follow him and we follow his plan, we will find fulfillment. And if we go stubbornly in our own way, trying to be clever and do everything under my own strength, you'll eventually be unfulfilled. I would challenge them about their following God. And I'd challenge the guys and say, hey man, it's such a wonderful way. You feel, first of all, you can make it, you're successful, and you feel fulfilled, and it's just a great experience, and you enjoy it.
Wonderful. And then finally, Tim, if you were to, now thinking back, the advice that you'd give to young men building their careers, how, from your perspective, how it's helped you to balance your faith, your ambitions, your relationships, what advice would you give to young men and women starting out? And
well, I'm harping on the same thing again, because I was useless at nearly all of those things to start with. Align yourself with God's plan for your life, and he'll help you through relationships. Relationships are always going to be the most difficult thing for, I think, especially young people in our lives. It was for me. They're huge things to get right. And God will help you through that. And he's actually written an instruction manual of how to work through it. And he's written this amazing book of the Bible, which gives you thousands of years of case studies of people who had the same challenges and who worked things out through God. That's been wonderful for me. And to know God, if you, as a young person or an older person, going to want to follow God, you've got to understand who you're following and his character.
what's been a standout for you about his character and the person that you committed your life to?
Oh, well, he's been so faithful to me in all those things, in the fires and the financial crises and relationships. He's always been there, often at the last hour only. But I'm going through such a good season now where I've got wonderful young men and women who are my children, all leaders in their professions. And we've got grandkids now, and I'm just going through a great season, and I just feel so blessed by God.
Wonderful. Yeah. Maybe just one last question. If you had to speak to, dare I say, our peer group, you've lived a good, full life. For those that still don't have a relationship with God, what would you want to say to them? And in terms of where we are in life, how that your perspective on dying?
So I've been thinking about that so much because I'm in my 70s now, and who knows how long God's going to give me. You don't last forever. And I understand fully where people are in that, because I've been there, man. And I can understand their uncertainty and even scoffing about this thing of God and going to heaven and all those issues. I can relate to them. I was there. But certainly for me, as we had a 55-year matric reunion a few weeks ago. could hardly recognize each other when you saw each other.
You got name tags.
Yeah, you had to have name tags. And then because your eyes are so bad now, you've got to go up and, what was your eye? It was, it was Charles. And some of my old friends, school friends are dying or have died. And so it's going to happen. And I just pray that when we cross that river, that we've made the right decision and God can say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Amen.
You've hung in and followed me, and that's what we must aim for. And it's like a race, man. It's like a marathon, but you've got to, and I know that so many people that I've noticed fall apart in their last stage of life, get disillusioned or mess up or have wrong relationships. But as in a race, you've got to finish strong. I mean, that's what you can start nice and easily and steadily and hang back. But to win the race, you've got to pull everything out at the end. So that's the stage I'm in.
I like that.
And that's what I'm praying that God will help me with and that I can be effective these last years I have.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you for sharing your life story. It's an inspiration. We, as CSB, just want to thank Tim again sincerely for giving up his time, but also just coming to open up his story for us. Please contact us if you want to correspond with us about this. If you've got any questions, we're there for you. But thank you again.
Thanks, Charles. You know what I was realizing? I've got my keys in my pocket and I was rattling them.
That's fine.
Could you? You should have stopped
No,
me,
it's
man.
fine. Folk will think it's your hip joint anyway. So it's fine.
Probably is.
I mean, you've been through a bit.
Yeah.
So.